Hello, and welcome to Breakthrough News Live.
Hey guys, Breakthrough News Live, Rania and Zoe in person.
In studio together.
Like next to each other. This is so exciting. I know I can poke you.
Obviously we're very excited. We've been talking about this big news, lots of things coming. Not only are we launching a new live show, Breakthrough Live, but today you all are finding out about a pretty historic day, which is Breakthrough News and People's Dispatch are joining forces, and we will be hearing from Breakthrough News' editor-in-chief, Ben Becker, to talk more about this. So more on that soon. Obviously, the news has not stopped, despite our own exciting news with this launch. So we will be getting into that. Of course, updates from Lebanon, war in Iran. But we did want to take a little time today to talk through what is this new background, what is this new show, and what does this new announcement mean for all of you?
That's true. Also, you forgot one thing we're going to be talking about, which is very relevant to where we're sitting.
Yes.
The Israel Day Parade in New York City.
Yes.
I'm in New York City now. It's been a rough morning. I went the wrong way on the train. And somebody shouted at me on my entire walk here, but that's very New York.
Welcome to New York City.
But I have to say, I just hope that you as a Jew, Zoe, feel safe in New York.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about that in relation to the fascist parade that took place here and all the Democrats who went. So that's another topic of conversation. But first, the exciting stuff, back to what you were talking about.
And I do feel safe. Thank you for asking.
So thank God. That's what matters more. I came all the way from Lebanon to New York City to check on my Jewish friends.
Check on your...
and make sure they're doing okay, because that is what matters. As long as you and others feel safe, I'm okay sacrificing land and people.
Lebanon.
Yeah, half, 14%, 20% at this point, something like that. And we'll get into that too.
Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about today. But first, joining forces, People's Dispatch, and Breakthrough News, we're going to talk about the tiers, membership. We need all of you to support us. But before we get into all of the details about what it means to support this new project, we are very excited to be joined by Editor-in-Chief of Breakthrough News, Ben Becker.
Yay.
Wow, thanks.
Where's the clap track? Do we have a clap track for the new show,
We actually
guys?
don't hear the sound effects when we
wouldn't even know if we had a
in
clap track.
studio.
Okay.
I'm applauding for you in my head right now.
Great.
Yes.
Ben, how does it feel to be here on Breakthrough News Live?
It feels great. It's a historic moment for us. It's the first show of Breakthrough News Live, but I think even bigger than the new show is this coming together of People's Dispatch and Breakthrough, which has been several months in development with Zoe co-hosting the show, but actually several years in development. And so, it's a huge day for Breakthrough. The idea that we're going to have all the reporting, amazing analysis, and investigation that people already know from People's Dispatch coming together with Breakthrough, all of our videos, social media, documentary content. It feels like we now have a true, massive media institution, which is the thing we've always been trying to build.
Yeah, I'm super excited because People's Dispatch is so important, and now it's basically breakthrough news. I mean, we're like a quadruple threat now. We've got the videos, we've got the social media posts, we've got now the written analysis in journalism, which is so groundbreaking. Like literally, we have people around the world on the ground, Africa, Asia, all the Asias.
West Asia,
West and East,
South Asia,
Latin America, and here in the U.S., who are reporting on all the things happening all in these various places. And that's written content that's so important that we're now going to have featured at Breakthrough News. And then we've got the shows. And we've got this show, which, by the way, should we give some, I don't know if we should give some more details about that. It's going to be twice a week.
Yeah.
So we've gone from, we had the Freedom Side before, which was every Thursday. Now we've got every Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to have a live stream hosted by me and Zoe, featuring lots of amazing guests, lots of amazing topics, lots of amazing monologues. I'm super excited about it all.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So Ben, obviously we've been in the thick of this process, but I think we maybe share with our audience, like, why now and what does it mean to kind of launch this project?
Well, I think first we have to start with the political moment we're in. And this moment has been the most immense wave of consolidation and mergers on the behalf of the corporate billionaire-owned media that you can see in years. I mean, people say, oh, it's only 5 or 6 media companies that own everything. I think that analysis held for when it was just like news stations, 5 or 6 news stations.
Right.
But now it's even bigger. Now we have the Paramount, Warner Brothers, CBS rolling into that. We have Oracle taking a big share in TikTok. You have Amazon becoming not just a media and entertainment company, buying up Washington Post. You have Elon Musk buying X. It's basically the merger of social media, entertainment, and news all under the umbrella of really just a few billionaires who are all friends with each other, have basically the same politics, and then wrapped up in the illusion of choice. Because then the algorithm makes you feel like, oh, I'm seeing content that appeals to me and that is based on my individual, likes and dislikes. But in fact, everything has become like harder and harder for independent media. So for me, and I think for all of us, it was like, how do we level up? If they're leveling up, they're consolidating, we have to also. And the fact that we are so easily, we're at the mercy of these companies, which, us coming together doesn't solve totally, but it means that now we're going to have a text and a video platform. It means that we want to draw people to our website. We'll just be frank about that, because if everything goes through YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, that means they could turn us off at any moment. So for us, having a website now that's going to be full of analysis, 5 to 10 articles all the time, coming up with all the breaking news, and that's going to have our video, and that's going to have exclusive content. We want to draw people away from these billionaire funded outlets. And you can't really do that if you're working in silos, like a media project here, 3 or 4 people, a podcast there, 1 or 2 people. Go to my Patreon. No, go to my Patreon. Follow my Instagram. No, follow my Instagram. It's kind of like a competitiveness for independent media, for individual content creators. And part of that is sort of structural. It's built into how social media works. We can't solve it. But we do think there's much more power in numbers. So you bring everything together, you put it under one roof. Now we can really punch above our weight.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And to what you were saying, I mean, obviously, like, we have these massive followings that we've built on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, I think on TikTok. Sorry, guys, I'm aging myself, but I don't really
Over 500,000 on TikTok.
Wow, look at that.
All right, let's go.
Look at that. I mean, I'm happy to have them. However, like you said, these are social media platforms, many of which are owned by a handful of billionaires who all have the same politics and who censor. We know they have some sort of shadow banning going on. I mean, look at our YouTube, right? Like, we have 1 million YouTube subscribers, but our numbers obviously are always cyclically up and down, and it doesn't make sense. So obviously there's something going on there. So all that's to say, instead of depending on these various mediums, you mentioned text-based stuff, you mentioned the videos. Is there a place, Ben, that people can go to find all this, like some sort of website?
Yes, well, the breakthroughnews.org website has now been redesigned, upgraded. It just launched 10 minutes before the show, because these things always go down to the wire. So people who are watching right now, don't click away. I don't think I want you to
don't
click
click
away.
away. Keep watching.
Keep watching.
But bookmark it.
Or maybe open another tab.
Open another tab.
Yeah,
put
just
it
keep
in.
this one open.
If you're on your phone, though, no need to X out.
Yeah.
Don't X out.
Yeah.
But really, the website, we hope, can be a true hub of all of this content. And, there's people who already are giving a lot of money to the corporate-owned media, and we think a lot of them should, throw a few bucks our way, and you can get a lot of exclusive content that way.
Cancel your time subscription, guys, and come. Or, whatever. If you want to keep it, fine. But I'd say cancel it and give us your money instead, because we do better work and we tell the truth.
And like you said, we have now a much bigger team. We have reporters across many time zones. I think we counted 12 time zones or something like that.
Hard to schedule meetings, guys.
It's very hard to schedule meetings. You have reporters in South America, in Cuba, in Kenya, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in India, in London, in
Croatia,
covering Nairobi, covering the whole world. And then we're going to have social media teams that are bigger, video editing teams that are bigger. So all of this, to build a formidable media institution, requires resources. So we do want people to become members. And, people say it's a dying business. The business is collapsing. News is collapsing. In a profit sense, it is. But then you have to ask the question, why are the billionaires throwing billions of dollars into it?
A losing business.
A losing business, because it's the battle over the narrative. It's the battle over the ideas. They know how important it is to control people's minds in this age of growing inequality, growing war. So they're willing to take a loss if it means that the masses of people don't get out of hand. So, we have to kind of have the same sort of spirit that it's not just about whether this is like a profitable business, but is this necessary? Is this necessary for our side of the barricades, for lack of a better word?
Well, yeah, I mean, these are literally outlets that are shoving the idea that permanent war is great down our throats, shoving the idea that the people responsible for all of the ills we're dealing with are like immigrants that are fleeing American wars and European backed wars, trying to convince us that genocide is actually self-defense, that the land theft in Lebanon and displacing over 1 million people is for the security of Western civilization. And I know a lot of the people who watch this program are preaching to the choir, but even more insidious things, like they want you to believe that the U.S. is some sort of like democratic, vibrant place that needs to spread its way around the world, and anything that challenges that is completely evil, that it's okay to kidnap presidents and it's okay to put Cuba under siege. I mean, these talking points are literally, it's like a tsunami of constant propaganda. And so outlets like Breakthrough News, obviously I'm very self-interested here, but I work here because I believe in what we do. I believe that it's really important that we are this voice challenging and breaking through the mainstream, telling the truth about these things, and most importantly, informing people about what's happening on the ground, which is the element that I'm really excited expanding will bring, because it's great to have our YouTube shows. I love the program. I get to host dispatches. It's really exciting. We get to have correspondents on our live streams to tell us what's going on in the world. But that like daily analysis and journalism from on the ground in places that are so ignored, like Africa, always ignored, like nothing there that happens matters. Like the fact that we are going to be able to provide that sort of groundbreaking coverage is super important, because the narrative war from the billionaire war class is going to just get louder.
Even here in the United States, there's stories that go uncovered. Just yesterday, they're going to have hundreds of thousands of people are going to start losing their food stamps. And it's like ho-hum, like not really a huge story here. And it's all because of this one big, beautiful bill. That's like hundreds of thousands of families that are losing their ability to eat. And it's not even a huge story. Minneapolis was a big story because of how big it was, but like we were deeply embedded in that. We were in the actual movement. Or the San Francisco teachers strike, which was against the big tech billionaires controlling their city. We're deeply involved in that. Alligator Alcatraz, which is going to close. We were deeply involved in that. Applause track. We were deeply, we were there filming. So even with the small team, we can also cover the stories that are happening inside the United States in a way that I think the mainstream media is all focused in basically New York, LA, DC, always big politics, which of course we're interested in too. We want to cover it from the standpoint, as you're saying, of like unexceptionalizing America. Like, what if another country went in and just started kidnapping heads of state? What happens if another country bypassed the UN Charter and just started bombing a country out of nowhere? Like, all of the media presentation is like, is this illegal? Is he breaking from the norms? Is this, the tradition? And whereas we're telling it right like it is.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that we can combine the international analysis, now the field reporting from across the globe, and also having basically people who trust us inside the United States to cover their struggles here, it positions Breakthrough in a way that no other outlet is positioned.
Before, I also forgot to ask, okay, so we're doing all this amazing stuff. We've expanded. So we're always telling people to go to Patreon and become patrons. What are we doing now? How are people supporting Breakthrough News?
Okay, so the people on Patreon they don't need to cancel. If they wanted to cancel and go sign up on the website, that would be fine, because on the website, you're going to get the same exact content now that you would on Patreon, but Patreon won't get their cut. So it's a little better for us. But anyway, we don't want to make things complicated. But people can go to the website. Now we're going to have a tiered membership where you're going to get the same, actually more exclusive content. We just released, for instance, Cuba After Castro, our documentary that was free for
hosted by Abby Martin.
Hosted by Abby Martin. That was free for all paid members on Patreon. So we're going to basically keep both things going now, but the website will be our own system. Again, we don't want to be reliant on these companies. So that's the main thing. You can also sign up just to put your email in if you want to get newsletters. We're going to really be expanding our newsletter production so that people every day, hopefully, will be getting analysis from us.
So I see here, sorry, I just opened the website. We've got free member subscribe, which gives you basically emails in your inbox of all the stuff we're doing. Basic member, where you get exclusive access to, which we're going to talk about, the Breakthrough live stream that's happening 2 days a week now. And then a Solidarity member, where you get even more stuff. So yeah, go to Breakthrough. If you're not already a member at Patreon, which you can still go become a member there, like Ben said, go to breakthroughnews.org, hit that subscribe button, and it'll give you the options.
Or slash subscribe. Direct.
Or slash subscribe, however you prefer.
I think, we're talking a lot about the excitingness of this moment, but I also think maybe to ground us a little bit, if we can talk about, I don't know, maybe what's changed since Breakthrough was launched. How did we get to this moment? How have our projects been working in parallel, and how we're going to work in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually been interesting because Zoe, you in particular, and the rest of the PD team, it's like we have the same interests. We have the same mission. So whenever there's a protest, whenever there's a strike, global analysis, we always find ourselves like we're making a video, and without even talking to you, you're making an article on the same thing. Or when we're trying to figure out our sort of approach to a certain story, People's Dispatch, first website we go to see what's the reporting that comes out of there. So in a way, I feel like we've been working in parallel tracks for so many years that we've built so much trust with one another as individuals and as organizations that we really know it's fact-based reporting, it's independent. On the other hand, it doesn't have like faux neutrality. Like, are we on the side of the billionaires or the poor? Are we on the side of the people being bombed or the people doing the bombing? Like it has a clear editorial line. And I think people appreciate that in this day and age. I think the idea of like fake neutrality is like the most gross part about the traditional media is that
can't be neutral in a moving train, as Howard Zinn said.
Yeah. So I think the fact that we have, a shared, whether it's a mass movement, the Palestine issue in particular, there were very few media outlets that we could say we trust during the genocide. Yeah. And so the fact that we developed so much trust through that process of reporting alongside one another, or out of Minneapolis in the negative 20-degree weather, those things are what brought us to this moment. So I think it's a natural progression and very exciting.
And I would just say, just to reflect a little bit on our journey from People's Dispatch, shout out any People's Dispatch viewers. You can trust Breakthrough. But, just to talk a little bit about kind of like how we got here as well. People's Dispatch was founded in 2018 to really fill a vacuum of what international news was, because as we know, wire services like Reuters, like AP, like AFP, these are services, I don't know if people know, but they have over 2,000 employees and stringers and freelancers that are all across the world and essentially feed the international news sections of most outlets across the entire world. So anytime you pick up a newspaper, whether it be in South Korea or India or South Africa, a lot of what they're going to print as international news will be from these wire services. And the wire services, in a lot of ways, are kind of just republishing the line of the United States, the line of the State Department. They are talking about news as if the people don't really have agency. And so we founded People's Dispatch to intervene in that space. Of course, we will never be an outlet with 2,000 employees, but we wanted to be able to give people a different understanding of international news and fill that vacuum that people on the left and in the progressive camp have been needing. Because if you are in the United States and you want to know what's happening in Brazil or in Lebanon, and you pick up the New York Times, you're not actually going to know what it means to be on the ground in Lebanon as a person. You don't know what it means for your currency to evaluate. And that be because of, the US dollar. And, so we've tried to bring this analysis. We've, bringing reporting from movements on the ground, people who are in motion and in struggle and every day kind of fighting and dedicating their lives to fight for a new world. And that's, again, as you said, we have missions that are parallel and aligned. And I think that being able to join and harness our forces with Breakthrough having such cutting edge analysis and on the ground coverage of what's happening in the United States as well is very important. And, a kind of tidbit that we always say about our PD coverage is that some of the most read stories ended up being stories about struggles within the United States, because people across the world are so hungry to demystify the idea that the people of the United States are some monolith, that the people of the United States are just subservient to the government and don't have any internal contradictions and are not in struggle. And so I'm really, really excited to bring also the content of Breakthrough and all of the incredible reporting that Breakthrough has been doing for the past 6 years to the PD audience, which also is, deeply invested in this kind of work.
I just want to add to that, as the person who's in Lebanon, I really do like it. I feel so gaslit because around me, I'm like, wow, there's people dying everywhere and just constant U.S. bombs dropped by Israelis. And I open the New York Times or the Washington Post or turn on CNN and it's not a headline story. It's not even happening. It's just completely insane because all of this stuff has become so normal. Gaza, oh yeah, Gaza's being bombed. A bunch of tents got hit today in another hospital. That's just how it is. It's normal. So I'm really proud to be here where I can just constantly be bringing that news, even if people are sick of hearing about it, which I don't think they are, because again, being totally ignored by the mainstream media.
Yeah, our reporter Luis in Cuba did something the other night that I thought was fantastic about just the fuel shortages. And okay, for the New York Times, it's let's report on that once.
Right.
That'll be in the top of the page once, and we'll keep moving. But for the people there, that's still their daily reality.
Yeah.
The crime does not become, less severe a week later. It actually becomes more severe.
No, it's urgent. It's their whole world is collapsing around them.
Exactly. And so I think there's also this thing where they're what's going to be best for clicks? What's going to be best for advertisers? And, that's to give them a news story, a news scandal. But for most working people, their life doesn't operate under those kinds of cycles. And I really appreciate the point you're making, Zoe, about how sort of the common sense of the world gets formed. Yeah. And I put common sense in quotation marks, the notion that the U.S. has the right to just position its military all over the world and control all the waterways and bomb whoever they want and indict foreign leaders and kidnap them. And, how does that common sense get formed? It doesn't get formed just by Donald Trump declaring it. It's the media handling of this and putting the U.S. on a kind of pedestal as if it's the center of the world, that the rules that have been created don't apply to it. And that then pervades consciousness at every single level. So this is a very complicated, mission we have here to kind of untangle that and to have people really look at the world in a totally different way.
Yeah. And I couldn't be more excited to do it with both of you, with our incredible team, which viewers will be hearing more from. Again, we have correspondents in Kenya, in India, in the West Bank, in Croatia, in Quito. We have, we work with journalists across the world. We interview people in, again, most countries. People's Dispatch, our feat is that we have readership in every single country of the world.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
The map of our readership. Now Breakthrough News does. Yes. So, we are actually speaking to people the mainstream will literally never. And I feel so excited.
Well, go, and if you want to see all this again, either open another tab or wait till this is over, but check out breakthroughnews.org. All of it's there now. Yes. We have a new, fresh website. We basically got a glow up.
Okay.
We got a
Breakthrough News glow up. That's what we should title this. The Breakthrough News. I like it.
Let's workshop it. Let's have a little A/B test that.
We're apparently a democracy here. Whatever. I also want to ask about. Well, I'm a part of it, but what's the deal with this new live stream? This new 2 times a week live stream that we're doing that me and you are hosting.
Well, I'll just start off with saying that this is not an endorsement of the Lakers.
Choose your words wisely. We don't want to piss anybody off. I'm just saying.
We love LA, but that is not what's going on here.
I'm gonna have to steal this mug, by the way. I don't have it in black. It's very cute. Look at this. It's great. Become a member and you can have one.
Yeah, actually, that's a good pitch. You become a member and you can have the mug. The Breakthrough live stream live is going to be twice a week. We are going to be bringing you all of the expert analysis and interviews that you've come to grow and love. We will also have an exciting segment bringing back the China report. every other week. We will have a segment on understanding the United States, because we realize a lot of people don't understand kind of the basic elements of our news cycle that are being thrown at us and, painted as normal. So the fact that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, it is not, just a fact of life. It was invented and created in the early 2000s. And now it is, made to be as like the normal law enforcement institution that we have to love and accept. That is not actually normal. We're going to be breaking down issues like this so our viewers can better understand the world they're living in and, what they're facing on a daily basis. Twice a week, hour and a half of us. And
Tuesdays and Thursdays, baby. Noon Eastern time. That's 7 p.m. Palestine time. That's 9 a.m. LA
if you're in California.
time.
In that car ride, we know that, commuting is a part of people's lives.
Every Tuesday and Thursday. However, there's a caveat.
There is a caveat.
Right now, you're watching this. It's available for everybody who's on YouTube, but it won't always be. This is to give you a teaser, a taste of what you can get. We will be releasing the segments we do on Breakthrough Live, but relatively soon, we basically will make the actual live stream itself only available to our members. So that's something that you can access if you go to either patreon.com/breakthrough news or breakthroughnews.org and become a member of Breakthrough News for as little as $5 a month. And you will be able to watch this live stream while it's live. And you might be asking, well, you're going to release the segments anyway, so who cares? Well, all of the fun jokes and banter that you hear between me and Zoe will only be available to our members.
And
a Q&A.
A Q&A.
A Q&A where those who are members can literally, you could ask Rania, Khalek, and Zoe Alexandra questions. And we will potentially or likely answer them, depending on what the question is. No gross questions like about feet and things like that, because people are weird online. But legitimate questions we will answer. But no, you can ask us, in all seriousness, you can ask us questions and we will answer them. That'll be a Q&A that will only be available to paying members. And obviously, we don't want to be putting important news and analysis behind a paywall and deny people who can't afford to be members access to that. So that'll still be available in the segments that we put out on YouTube and on the website to everybody. However, the fun stuff, we got to give people something to be members because we gotta be able to hire, we got to be able to pay our staff. We got to be able to hire more video editors, more journalists, so we can keep bringing you news and analysis and really keep growing, because the narrative war is only getting more fiercer, more fierce, one of those.
Yeah.
So breakthroughnews.org or patreon.com/breakthrough news, and we will announce once we go paywall. But today you get a free one. Tune in Thursday at noon Eastern time. You'll get a free one so you can see what you might miss out on if you don't become a member.
And, as Ben said, the billionaires understand media as an investment in pushing their political line, an investment in kind of shaping the opinions and minds of the people. So think of supporting Breakthrough News as your own political investment, because we will only be able to produce the content that we're producing today with your support. And in order, this is content that is breaking down, myths, explaining breaking news on a daily basis. These are the things that you need to understand the world. And for more and more people to get that analysis, to break through, as it were. And so think of it as your own kind of an investment in yourself and in the people you care about, because if this billionaire, dominated media keeps dominating, then what the end goal of that.
And none of them are gonna swoop in to save us.
No,
that's the thing is it's gonna have to be people power that keeps this going. I mean, we're basically relying on the model that even though we assume our viewership and readership are not extremely rich, that there will be enough of them by passing the hat, so to speak, we will be able to collect enough to keep this thing going. And when you look at all these other media outlets that not all, but 95% of them, there's usually some super rich person who's basically decided this is going to be their vanity project. And that's not what this is. This is going to be
an institution.
An institution that's going to be funded by readers all over the world and viewers all over the world who just appreciate it and know, okay, I know everyone's going through a hard time, but people generally can find the $5 a month to support content that's not just going to be a live stream every 2 days. It's going to be now huge numbers of articles on the website with a completely different vantage point, 4 different shows, podcasts, documentaries, all of it viewer funded. And we're a nonprofit organization, so none of us are getting rich off of this. This is really just to try to keep us going.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I was just looking at some
How's the feedback?
The feedback is mostly positive, but first of all, we did get a donation. I just want to shout out Downtown J91801. Thank you for your donation. You can donate in the live chat. One person was like, Thursday at noon is not a good time for me.
You can watch it back.
Yeah, you can watch it back. And also,
if you're a member,
we were paywalling important information. I just want to reiterate, the live stream will be paywalled. We will release all the segments from the live stream either the same day or in the following day. So you will absolutely see the various guests we have on for the analysis and reporting from on the ground. That is not going to all sit behind a paywall. However, the perk you get as a member, listen to me carefully, is that you get to watch the show live or even after it's live in full, the entire hour and some block. That includes all the banter between me and Zoe. And in addition, the member Q&A, which is also a perk for members, where we will take your questions and respond to them on air. So again, we care about informing people and giving you the analysis and journalistic information you need to understand the world. That is still going to come out for free to everyone, I promise. However, I'm just reiterating this because some people, you need to say things like 5 times, and that's okay. That's okay. We're going to keep repeating it.
It's an important part of pedagogy.
Yeah.
Yes.
How dare you? And I'm like, we're not putting the important stuff behind a paywall. We have to give people perks because we also want to give you back something. If you are somebody who is actually like materially able to support us, we want you to get something for that.
Yeah. And with that,
Ben,
we thank you
for all that
Ben
you do.
Becker, Editor-in-Chief of Breakthrough News, my new boss.
It's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to working on all of it together. We're gonna have like a mountain of new tasks, and the fact that we're all gonna be working together now, the team is so much bigger. I'm super excited. I want to thank everyone who's already a member.
Yes,
we couldn't have gotten here without all of that support. I mean, literally, we started Breakthrough right here with a very tiny little team. And the fact that it's now grown so much is only because of the viewers. It's not because of anything else.
Yeah. Well, Ben Becker, we will be seeing you, Dr. Ben Becker. We will be seeing you again because you're a boss, but also our friend and also a huge, important person at Breakthrough News, Editor-in-Chief. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
And yeah, Zoe.
Rania,
super exciting. Here we go, baby.
Here we go.
First segment of Breakthrough Live that's not about Breakthrough Live.
Yes. So you alluded to this earlier, and you just got to New York yesterday,
yes.
But Sunday there was kind of a big, there's
I almost didn't come. I felt unsafe.
We need to talk about the Israel parade on Sunday.
Yes, there was this massive, it's a yearly parade where like all of the supporters of Israel and various politicians who want to, who are opportunistic hacks or have terrible ideologies, which I guess those two things kind of go hand in hand, come together and celebrate this settler colony that's destroying the region of the world I come from and doing a lot of damage in this country as well. And that is the Israel Parade. And this year, the Israel Parade was attended by, like usual, Israeli government officials. The one that's gotten the most attention for being there is the finance minister, not the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, who is national security minister. Let me double check myself on that. But Bezalel Smotrich is one of the most Minister of Finance, excuse me. But he's also, I believe, in charge of West Bank settlement stuff. But he attended yesterday. I was confusing him with Ben-Gvir. Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has similar politics to Bezalel Smotrich. But anyways, Smotrich was there. He's obviously been an ardent supporter of the genocide in Gaza, like has explicitly stated so, like we should basically like eliminate everybody there. Same with Lebanon. This is like one of the people who would fall in like the messianic, ultra-religious, like illegal settler sort of category of Israelis. And he's often, I think framed as though he's some sort of marginal figure in Israel, but he's not. He is the finance minister. He's a government official. So he was there. This guy is an open fascist and an open genocidal maniac. And so it was surprising to see a parade that embraced him and others, and I'll go into who else was there, others like him, be attended by so many American Democratic politicians. So I want to start off by playing a clip from Senator Chuck Schumer giving a speech at this parade.
The Holocaust showed the world what Jews have known for millennia, that our security and our safety is never safe as long as we lack a place of refuge, a homeland. To quote the great Irish writer Conor Cruise O'Brien, anti-Semitism is a light sleeper. And now we are seeing an ugly resurgence of anti-Semitism across the world, driven by the same lies and libels that have tormented the Jewish people for generations, except now they're transmitted at the speed of a fiber optic internet connection. In 30 seconds, lies are on your pocket phone. That's why a Jewish state is more important than ever. Anti-Semitism isn't going away. It always lingers, stalks in the shadows, waiting for the right conditions. For millennia, let them hear that loud and clear. The Jewish people have yearned for a state of Israel, whilst experiencing the constant anxiety of knowing the place where they lived could violently expel them at any moment, has happened again and again. We cannot, we must not go back to that era. I believe in the state of Israel. I support the state of Israel. If there had been a state of Israel in 1941, dozens of my ancestors would have been able to flee Nazi persecution. So, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's in Israel or in America or around the world, Am Yisrael Chai. The people Israel live. Thank you.
That's just disgusting. You know what? I live in constant anxiety when I'm in Lebanon because that country that he's celebrating as some sort of refuge, that fascist settler colony, is constantly dropping bombs on the country my family and I live in and come from. And we're lived in for generations because that's our ancestral land. The country he's supporting is trying to steal. Chuck Schumer, is he from the Middle East?
No.
He's definitely not Middle Eastern as far as I can tell. But he thinks that this place belongs to him, not because he wants to live in it, by the way. This is a multi-millionaire, very successful, leading U.S. senator. He is the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, whining that he needs a just-in-case settler fascist state in case he has to flee because of something that happened in the 40s. And, you know, I challenge this exceptionalism of when it comes to Jews that he is reiterating because, yes, there was a Holocaust. Historically, Jews have been persecuted in various parts of the world, specifically in Europe, by the way. But so have a lot of other populations. They don't get to go make a fascist settler colony as a just-in-case refuge. And by the way, the people who populate Israel in 2026 wouldn't like you because they would consider you some crazy leftist because you're not some ultra right-wing psycho. But kind of are. But that is disgusting to me. That because Chuck Schumer, a multi-millionaire, successful man in the U.S., a white man in the U.S., supports a state that is stealing land and destroying everything around it, literally turning entire areas of the world, ancient places, into post-apocalyptic moonscapes that kills journalists and rescue workers on purpose and entire families in their home. That because that man needs a just in case.
No, it's...
I have to suffer. My family has to suffer. Palestinians have to... We all just need to get out of his way for as much land as he needs to not have anxiety while there are actual bombs dropped on us. It's insane. This is a white Jewish supremacist. That is what Chuck Schumer is, saying that I need to suffer so he can feel better from New York City. Give me a break. Give me a break.
It's disgusting.
And then I want to move on. It wasn't just Chuck Schumer. I mean, this won't surprise anybody. This is not exactly a Democrat I don't actually know. I think I don't know. Does she have
She's
a party?
just cop.
She's just cop,
She's just
which
cop.
can be Democrat or Republican. The chief of the NYPD, Jessica Tisch, bragging what a beautiful day it was as she joined this fascist parade. And we know she's an ardent Zionist.
Yeah.
She joined, of course, with Michael Bloomberg.
Lovely.
And was bragging about NYPD security at her parade. We also have, this was a little bit more irritating. The Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, saying that she was proud to join New York's Jewish communities at the Israel Day Parade to celebrate culture, history, resilience, and the deep ties that bind our communities together. Did nobody on her staff let her know that this is like a fascist settler colony that is currently carrying out genocides in more than one country?
And is wanted by the ICC,
Yeah,
which in a
has
way
people
is like
wanted by the ICC, yes.
like her colleagues in a way, since she's in the judicial branch. So you know, it's just like, are you? And it would be. I mean, and the funny thing. I mean, it's not funny at all, but the fact that, you know, they say, okay, well, you know, anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, but like, and they're saying, oh, this is great for the Jewish people. It is the Israel Day Parade. It is celebrating Israel.
No,
this
it wasn't the Jewish Day Parade.
It's not the Jewish People's Parade. It is Israel. You are celebrating a genocidal fascist ethno-state. That is it.
With a lot of its leadership wanted having ICC warrants against them.
Yeah.
And then you had her after, I think, a lot of backlash, including from people like me, because I was literally like, did nobody on this woman's staff, like nobody on her
really,
staff,
yeah.
tell her this is a bad idea. So then Letitia James tried to walk it back, saying, she basically quote tweeted somebody who was talking about how nobody knew Smotrich was going to be there. He just showed up. And she said, Islamophobia has no place in New York. I unequivocally condemn Bezalel Smotrich hateful rhetoric. Okay, that's nice. But he is literally the embodiment of the state of Israel. Not only that, it wasn't just Bezalel Smotrich who was problematic, who attended. And again, this is a man, by the way, he was honored at this event under the banner of the New York Jewish community. So it doesn't sound like somebody who just showed up and happened to be in the front.
Yeah, the police escort for a member of a foreign government.
This man has called for segregating Jewish and Arab mothers in maternity wards, by the way. That's like pretty typical of him. He's advocated for starving Gaza and basically eliminating everybody there and taking it over and settling it. He's advocated for the same in South Lebanon, displace all the Shias, take it over, settle it with Israeli Jews. And of course, he's now driving this like settler violence campaign on the West Bank, which is just lynchings like every single day. It's so horrific what's taking place in the West Bank. Also something you're not going to really see covered in the New York Times more than once every 6 months. But this is not some marginal figure. Again, he serves in the Israeli government, but again, it wasn't just him. There were other figures who were also at this parade. And before I get into that, I also just want to point out Zohar Mamdani refused to attend.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really important.
Really
I know some people didn't think he went far enough because his NYPD chief attended, but I mean, he can't control her, even though I don't think she should be his NYPD chief.
Right.
That's a bad on his part that he kept her. But I thought this is the first time a mayor of New York City did not attend. He was very explicit about why he didn't attend. Because this is a genocidal state and there are advocates of genocide who have ICC warrants against them attending this event. And I don't want to entertain that. There was also a man called Itzhak Wasserloff. He was coaching the IDF as they entered Gaza, offering a blessing on the one who Caesar's babies and bashes them against the rocks. And then a cabinet minister called Amihai Ben Eliyahu, who called on bombing humanitarian aid to Gaza, called for starving Gaza, and also called for nuking Gaza. He was at this parade. Does Letitia James condemn him yet? And then, of course, there was Bezalel Smotrich, who said it's just and moral to starve 2 million Gaza residents. But unfortunately, no one will let us. And actually, the world is letting them. And I've said a bunch of other things about what he supports. There was a man called Ariel Kellner. And by the way, Raphael Shamunev did a Twitter thread on this. So I'm going through because he labeled who was there and why it matters. This is a man who says this is an Israeli who said, whoever remains in the north, we will truly starve them. One goal, Nakba. A Nakba will overshadow the Nakba of 1948. A Nakba in Gaza and a Nakba for anyone who dares join. And he was one of the 8 officials who signed a letter demanding the elimination of all food and power sources in Gaza. So that's another Israeli official there. Also, Amir Ohana, Speaker of the Israeli Knesset, he praised Donald Trump's proposal to relocate people of Gaza and redevelop Gaza, calling it a bold new vision and a fresh perspective. And he said, if you want a Palestinian state, build it in London or Paris. And I mean, for time's sake, I can't keep going on here, but this thread goes on and on. Also, Eric Adams was there, not a surprise there. He's bought and paid for by the Turks and the Israelis somehow. But yeah, I mean, I just, this is completely unacceptable. The fact that Democrats attended this rally, Zoe, to me, is just giving the middle finger to their base, because we've seen that the majority of the people who support the Democratic Party or in the Democratic Party are now more pro-Palestine and vehemently opposed to Israel and believe what Israel's doing in Gaza is a genocide. And yet you have the leader of the Senate Democrats.
I also just want to point out that, like, for 2.5 years, and arguably still to this day, there were protests and mass demonstrations against the genocide in Gaza, protesting Israeli officials when they came to New York City for over 2.5 years. And you know, oftentimes Zionist agitators would show up, but in very few numbers. And so I feel like there's also an element that they tried to carry out this parade to show, you know, no, New York is not a pro-Palestine, anti-Zionist city. This is, you know, we can have this massive parade. But I just want to say that, like, that is not, yes, they were able to have this parade and be condemned by, like, literally everyone who actually matters in terms of, like, politically, because the city of New York elected Zohran Mamdani, who ran unequivocally anti-genocide and pro-Palestine. So, like, the people in this city are against genocide, do not support war crimes, and do not support war criminals being in their city. And so, yes, they were able to do this parade. It does not have the support of the majority of New Yorkers or the majority of Jewish New Yorkers. And as a Jewish New Yorker, I do feel deeply unsettled that this was made to be like a celebration of Judaism in New York. It's disgusting. And this is what actually makes Jewish people feel unsafe, having war criminals saying that they're representing them. It is atrocious, and that's a whole different thing. And I'm not going to like make it about Jews, obviously, but like this is the issue. And I just want to say, like, New York will continue to be a city that rejects genocide and rejects war criminals, and them having this parade is just a show that the NYPD is able to clear a parade route. There are parades in the city constantly, and the people don't support this.
Also, you know, I've had it with these politicians who claim like, oh, like they're all going on and on about how much they care about anti-Semitism, and that's why they need their just-in-case fascist settler state. People like Chuck Schumer will say this. Meanwhile, they're literally basically saying that Jews and Israel are the same thing. And, you know, the institutionalized, like Jewish institutions in America have absolutely been responsible for promoting that idea. Because, I mean, I believe there was a very well-known synagogue in New York that's been participating in basically selling land, West Bank land, to like illegally selling land, and also promoting people like Bezalel Smotrich. So you are intertwining a genocidal fascist state into organized Jewish institutions in North America, holding an Israel Day parade and saying it's all Judaism, Jewishness, and then getting angry when people conflate the two. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. Like, that you're causing that. And then you want to sit here and tell me you're living in constant anxiety, where you're creating those conditions, by the way. But also, they're not institutional anti-Semitic conditions. You are creating the conditions for anti-Semitism on individual levels, but there's nothing institutional in this country that's anti-Semitic, unless you want to talk about the conflation of Israel and Judaism. But then in the same vein, you are saying that it's okay to bomb me, to destroy everything around me and the people around me, destroy over 50,000 homes in Lebanon, to literally steal 14 to 20% of Lebanon and say Lebanese can't access it anymore, to erase Gaza, to slowly erase the West Bank, and literally murder children all day, every day, around the clock, so that you feel less anxious from your multi-million-dollar penthouse apartment in New York City. Like, I'm so sick of these privileged white people acting like victims. That is what Chuck Schumer is, acting like victims when they are supporting this monstrosity. Where every day I open my Twitter feed and it's limbs missing from children and parents crying or children crying because they've lost one or the other. Like, it's just, it baffles the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we've run out of banter time here. I could literally just rant on and on about how outrageous this is, but we'll have to leave it there because we have a very fantastic guest to turn to, we're going to turn now to Iran. Still a dominating story, the war that seems to never end because the U.S. won't stop. This U.S. Israeli war continues to escalate even as negotiations over possible settlement remain alive. And yesterday we saw that the Iranians reportedly they threatened to suspend these indirect talks with Washington, citing continued Israeli attacks on Lebanon, insisting that any ceasefire must apply on all fronts, not just to Iran. Meanwhile, Trump is claiming that diplomacy is still moving forward, even as the U.S. and Iranian forces continue exchanging strikes. And tensions remain quite high across the region, as they have for the last 3 months. In fact, I believe we've now passed the 3-month threshold. Of this war. So for more, we're joined by Professor Mohammad Marandi, who is an expert in American studies at the University of Tehran. Professor Marandi, welcome to our debut episode of Breakthrough News Live. It's great to see you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Well, it's the developments continue to change like every hour as more things happen with these indirect negotiations. But I wanted to start off by asking you about Iran's recent retaliations with regard to the Gulf states, because the Arab Gulf states, because the U.S. and Iran, they have continued to exchange fire, especially in the last couple of weeks, despite these ongoing indirect negotiations. And when the U.S. strikes Iran has basically repeatedly retaliated against locations connected to the American military presence in the Gulf, but particularly in Kuwait and the UAE. So I just wanted to ask, why is there a specific focus on these two states, and what message is Iran trying to send here?
As you know, all 5 regimes in the Persian Gulf, meaning Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the Emirates, they were complicit in the war against Iran. They hosted U.S. bases. They allowed the United States to use those bases and to use their airspace to strike Iran. And of course, on day one, they helped the United States slaughter 168 little girls in an elementary school in the city of Minab, along with a couple of dozen of teachers and school staff. So that's why the Iranians retaliated against the United States. In these countries, they struck their bases, but also when the U.S. or the Israeli regime would strike Iranian critical infrastructure or the country's civilian infrastructure, Iran would strike the Israeli regime's infrastructure, but also the infrastructure of the regimes that were hosting U.S. bases and facilitating U.S. strikes. The 2 regimes that right now are helping the United States more than any other are Kuwait and the Emirates. They host a significant amount of U.S. land forces. All of the countries host U.S. assets right now that are prepared to launch an attack against Iran. But the UAE and Kuwait have a contingent of Marines and ground forces that could be used against Iran. So they are a particular threat to the country, and their territory has been used to strike Iranian targets during these unprovoked attacks by the Americans. So the focus for Iran has been retaliating against the United States and against these 2 regimes.
It's been a couple of weeks, maybe even now over months, of these circular talks regarding a possible deal. Kind of like every week we're like, oh, we might be getting a deal, or we may get a resumption of war. And so what actually would be necessary for Iran to accept a deal? What would make this settlement credible? Because we know that the biggest fear and what's really on the table is a deal being struck, a ceasefire being established, and then U.S. and Israel coming in a couple months, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, and attacking again.
Well, for the time being, the first stage of any agreement would have to bring an end to the siege on the Strait of Hormuz by the Americans, a complete end to the siege. It would have to mean that the Israeli regime leaves Lebanon and no longer carries out attacks or assassinations in the country. It would also mean that the United States would waive sanctions for Iranian oil and gas exports during this 2-month period of time. And it would also mean that the United States has to release immediately half of Iranian stolen assets, which is roughly $12 billion. Over the years, the United States has stolen roughly $24 billion of Iranian assets. So half of those have to be handed over to the Iranians. So this is, and also the ceasefire in Gaza has to be enforced.
And of course, it's like, how do you end up guaranteeing that? And that's the big question. But, you know, I know we're on limited time with you, and I wanted to give you a chance to answer something that I'm curious what you'd have to say to this. Because, you know, when this war began, many people predicted that Iran would quickly collapse under military and economic and political pressure. That clearly hasn't happened. And Professor Marandi, we've had you on the show and we've discussed why that hasn't happened. But, you know, 3 months into this conflict, I wanted to ask you if you think there is a winner and or a loser, and if so, who and why?
I think the big loser is the United States. They were defeated militarily, and because of the siege on the Persian Gulf, they've also strangled the global economy, and the global economy is heading for a cliff, and so is the U.S. economy, and that is not going to end well for Trump. But I think besides the United States being the big loser, in reality, the Israeli regime is also a big loser, because after almost 3 years of genocide and turning the entire world against itself, now the Israeli regime is starving the world of energy because it refuses to allow the United States to sign an agreement with Iran. And it has been preventing this agreement, which could have been signed almost 2 months ago now, well over a month and a half ago. So the world, as the world goes downhill, as the situation gets worse, and every day that this siege continues, it's going to intensify the crisis, and it will definitely lead to a recession. But now I think if this lasts much longer, a couple of months, it will lead to a global economic depression without a renewal of a military conflict. Just if we have this stalemate for a couple more months, I think we'll have a global economic depression. But the world is going to blame the Israeli regime. But the reason why the regime continues down this foolish path is because Netanyahu needs crises, and his political allies, they don't care what happens to the rest of the world. But I have colleagues in India, for example. And India had a traditionally pro-Israeli position under Modi. And according to polls, the majority of Indians supported the Israeli regime. Mm-hmm. Now, the majority of Indians do not support the Israeli regime. And that means a large segment of the Hindu population does not support the regime. One reason for it is that the regime is the cause of the growing economic crisis in India. In other words, the Zionists have no regard for India or Indians, nor do they have any regard for Argentina or Uganda or any of those countries where they have a sizable support base for whatever reason. And that is, I think, that is going to hurt the regime much more than they can really imagine.
You know, and Professor Marandi, before we let you go, just want to ask one last question. In a lot of ways, the nuclear question has come up, of course, over the past decade with U.S. Iranian relations. And Iran has consistently said it does not want to pursue a nuclear weapon. Its nuclear program is peaceful, but it does have the right to enrich uranium. However, there has been sort of a increased evidence that maybe it is important to have nuclear deterrence because countries that do have it are not getting attacked. Does this calculation change? And does Tehran still believe that it has conventional capabilities, regional alliances, and control over strategic choke points like the Strait of Hormuz that allow it to have sufficient deterrence now? And why is Iran holding so firmly to its right to have enriched uranium, even amid intense military pressure?
Well, the Islamic Revolution 47 years ago was about sovereignty and independence and dignity and honor and support for the oppressed across the globe. And so there's no chance that this movement, that this state is going to accept the United States or the Europeans taking away their sovereign right. Iran is a member of the NPT, and it has signed the NPT. It's a member of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and it has not violated any of the laws or the regulations that it has signed up to. So they see no reason why they should give up any of their sovereignty. Mm-hmm. Iran is probably the most fiercely independent country on this planet, and we see Iran's support for the Palestinians, partially because Iran is not cowed by the West, and partially because of its ideology, where it has to support the oppressed across the board. That's why Iran supports Venezuela and Cuba and so on, and it supported the resistance against apartheid South Africa. But after the 12-day war, where last year, which we're almost on the anniversary of that war, where the United States and the Israeli regime launched a blitzkrieg attack against Iran, public opinion, despite the state's opposition to nuclear weapons, public opinion shifted, and the majority of the public support having nuclear weapons. I haven't seen recent polling in Iran, but I would imagine that a significant majority today still supports the government, the state, producing nuclear weapons. But the policy continues to be that we do not want nuclear weapons for a host of reasons. One is moral. During the war where the West supported Saddam Hussein to invade Iran, and the United States pushed Saddam to invade, and these Arab regimes in the Persian Gulf supported Saddam back then too, gave him hundreds of billions of dollars, and the Germans gave him chemical weapons with the support of the West and the US. I survived 2 chemical attacks. At that time, when Saddam Hussein was using chemical weapons extensively against the Iranians and against his own people, in one attack he killed 6,500 Iraqis in northern Iraq in a Kurdish city called Halabja and in the surrounding areas. And the West had no problem with that. People went to Ayatollah Khomeini, the first leader of the revolution, and said we need to produce chemical weapons. And he said no. He refused to give them permission. He said it's immoral and we're not going to produce them. So Iran does have a history of opposing weapons of mass destruction, whereas the West has a history of producing them, using them, and giving them to others to use them as well.
Well, Professor Mohammad Marandi, I know you got other things you gotta get to, but we really, really appreciate you joining us and breaking all this down, and hope to see you again soon. Stay safe out there.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a very good day.
Well, Zoe, that was Iran. It's like we're stuck in an endless, I know I say this every week, but we are stuck in an endless time loop that we've been forced into by demons, and someone has to break the spell because it's just the same over and over
it
again.
is crazy, and I'm glad that he noted that it is almost the 1-year anniversary of the 12-day war, because I mean, in a lot of ways, what's happening now is just the continuation of this. And I know people were very shocked when that took off in June last year. And of course, February 28th, I think, changed history forever. Similarly to January 3rd, Donald Trump has taken to the U.S. to its kind of the U.S. state to its logical conclusion, making good on threats that both Democrats and Republicans had both made, and that people honestly probably didn't think would actually come to fruition. But then we saw the U.S. and Israel bomb Iran on February 28th, kill again 168 schoolgirls in Minab, and we're here today. And I mean, Iran has also changed the game in a lot of ways, but it's hard to believe that there was a moment before this when the U.S. and Israel had not gone to war with Iran.
I can't remember a world before there was this war on Iran. Well, before we get to our next guest, I do just want to remind people, because I forgot to say it. Smash that like button, you guys. It helps boost us in the algorithm that sometimes likes us and then other times hates us. And I don't know where we're at today, but just smash the like button. Also, a reminder, go to breakthroughnews.org and become a member today. And you can access exclusive content, upcoming exclusive content. For those just tuning in, this is the debut premiere episode of Breakthrough News Live, hosted by me, Rania Khalek, and the amazingly lovely Zoe Alexandra. We have merged People's Dispatch and Breakthrough News, and we now fall under the banner of Breakthrough News, and we'll be doing this live stream twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You can access all of it moving forward if you go to breakthroughnews.org and become a member. But now on to Lebanon, which is very much a part of this regional war. Israel's escalation in Lebanon reached a major turning point yesterday after Iran reportedly threatened to suspend talks with the U.S. if Israel followed through on threats to bomb the southern suburbs of Beirut. Trump appeared to take that very, very seriously enough to rein in the Israelis, at least for now, saying that Beirut is basically off limits and that de-escalation could follow. He said if Hezbollah holds its fire, Israel has continued to bomb southern Lebanon, though, and Hezbollah has, as it has a right to, continue to respond. Meanwhile, the Lebanese government just met with Israeli counterparts in Washington, D.C. at the State Department for these so-called direct negotiations that are not exactly representative of the U.S. government or of the Lebanese people. They're trying to basically separate the Lebanon front from the Iran-U.S. talks and keep Lebanon out of any broader regional settlement. But a new poll, which is what we're going to be talking about in this segment, a new poll by Professor Jad Melki, director of the Institute of Media Research and Training at Lebanese American University, suggests that this does not reflect where most Lebanese people actually stand, especially when it comes to Israel, the U.S., Iran, resistance, and Palestine. Jad joins us today to talk about the significance of his findings. Jad, welcome to Breakthrough News. It's so good to have you.
Thanks, Rania. Thanks, Zoe.
And you are talking to us, of course, from Beirut. And before we get to your poll, I kind of want to ask you about your thoughts on the latest news, because like I mentioned, Trump has claimed that he negotiated a new arrangement between the Israelis and the Lebanese to prevent Israeli attacks specifically on Beirut, saying that if that works, maybe eventually it will lead to de-escalation across the country. But it requires, not just Israel refraining from striking Beirut, but also Hezbollah to hold its fire. The details around that remain a bit murky, including whether that applies to only cross-border raids by Hezbollah or against any attacks on Israeli troops that are occupying Lebanese territory in the south. So I'm curious, what do you make of this new arrangement? And do you think it suggests that Lebanon is in fact being negotiated as part of this broader regional settlement between the Iranians and the Americans?
So the last thing I checked in the news is that they started the meeting in DC. The statements from Trump, I don't like to comment on those because 5 minutes later they change and flip and become contradictory. So the only thing I can comment on are the stable comments. That's the comments of the statements of the resistance, and the Iranian statements have been steadfast. The resistance has rejected the deal that in return for not striking Beirut, the resistance will not strike occupied North Palestine. They have rejected it in, I think, some 12 statements today. And I think the Americans have understood the message. The Iranians have been very steadfast behind that position too. So we have to wait and see what's going to happen. But we know where we stand. We have no idea where Trump stands right now, or in 5 minutes, or tomorrow morning. Who knows?
Yeah, it's like, again, it's Trump's world and we're kind of just responding to it. But your research, Jad, is extremely important in this regard, because you're actually, polling and getting the sentiments of the people within your country. And your poll did find that 87% of respondents agreed that Israel is their enemy, 51% viewed the United States as their enemy, and 38% viewed Iran as their enemy. At the same time, there were more complicated divisions over tactics. You found that 54% agreed diplomacy is the only path to liberation, 35% supported armed resistance as the only path, and 51% agreed that Israel should be destroyed, while 34% supported signing a peace agreement with Israel. So that's a lot. What stood out to you most in these results, and what do they tell us about Lebanese public opinion at this moment?
So let's start with the first part about the 87 or close to 90% enmity towards Israel. I'm actually not surprised from that result. Several years ago and several months ago, we've had the same results when it comes to Israel. What really bothered me, and what was the incentive to run this study, is that if you watch the media, you'd think that most of the country has become with Israel, but it's really actually a bunch of media outlets, mostly TV stations that have been funded by Western resources, that keep spewing propaganda and trying to change public opinion towards that. But that's not a very easy thing to do with Lebanon. But what actually struck me are the results towards the U.S. and Iran. I was actually expecting the opposite. I was expecting maybe 50 to 60 enmity towards Iran, and maybe 30 to 40 enmity towards the US. But those numbers were actually flipped. And I had to double check, quadruple check these numbers. I was quite shocked. And I even looked back at other studies to see what's happening with the image of the US, with the international sentiment towards the US. This is a very clear message to the United States in the world today. Sentiment towards the United States has been plummeting since the Obama era. It was actually somewhere positive around 60, 65%. Right now, it's in the 30s, somewhere in between 30 and mid-30. And there are two and only two reasons to blame for that: the Trump administration and policy, but more so the Israeli genocidal regime. The US right now is paying the price for supporting this genocidal, psychopathic regime and all its crimes, and for funding it and sending it weapons and supporting it and covering its crimes. This is what's happening, and this should be a very clear alert to the US. If the US wants to keep or bring back its positive standing, there needs to be a lot of change in policy, especially foreign policy, and change of support to this genocidal regime.
Your poll also broke down some differences between class, generations, and different religious sects. But despite those differences, because there was some differences depending on who you asked, one thing that remained overwhelmingly strong across the board in Lebanese society was this opposition to Israel. So I'm curious if you can maybe talk a little bit about what stood out most to you about those divisions, and what do they tell us about where Lebanese public opinion is headed?
Sure, absolutely. Let me clarify one thing, that what we did not measure public opinion, we measured something deeper, which we call political attitude. Political attitude is not quickly changing. It's strong. It's not very easily affected by the media. It lasts for much longer. You need campaigns and propaganda over years to change political attitude. While political opinion is very superficial, can often change very rapidly from one day to another. So these numbers will last for a long time. And as you said earlier, some of these numbers look as if they're a bit contradictory, but you can easily explain them. The overwhelming enmity towards Israel, and then the other number that says that only 35% support armed resistance, while some 50% support diplomacy. This is what Lebanese think about dealing with Israel. So there's a big chunk of Lebanese who believe the only way to deal with Israel is the same way they've been doing to us, with military arms, with armed resistance. While the others, and I understand their sentiment, because they are afraid, they're worried. They feel that this country is much stronger than us, so we need to figure out a different way to deal with them, and they choose diplomacy. But unfortunately, diplomacy has not worked for many other countries, especially Palestine in this part of the world, specifically with this genocidal Israeli regime. So this is what explains somewhat of the some of the differences. And you can also see differences between religious communities, differences between economic level, and differences between age. What I'm actually glad to see is the young generation carries the highest level of enmity towards Israel, the highest level of support for armed resistance, the lowest level of support for a quote-unquote peace agreement with Israel. And that is very refreshing, and I can attribute that directly to October 7, to the operation that happened on October 7 that triggered and brought attention to what is happening in Palestine, to the century-old suffering in Palestine. I can see that even in my kids. At one point in 2020, 2021, we felt that Palestine is no longer a thing. Nobody's talking about it. And then October 7 happened, Al-Aqsa flood operation. And I was actually surprised to find out that two of my daughters actually were arrested in the U.S. for protesting for Free Palestine. And a big part of me was worried, but a big part of me was also proud and happy to see, oh, wow, this issue is back on the conscious of young people's minds. So that is one of some of the reflections of the divisions in the findings.
Yeah, that's super, super important to hear. And I also thought it was super interesting that even across sect, of course, things varied slightly, but there was still that majority, sees Israel as the enemy. And that's despite this kind of elite discourse that we see in across Lebanese media. I mean, much of Lebanon's political, financial, and media establishment pushes, as you know, this very strong anti-Iran, pro-American narrative that often portrays normalization with the Israelis as this kind of like inevitable thing or something that's desirable. And, there's figures like Anton Sahnawi, who is a Lebanese banker, who's currently dating Morgan Ortagus, who was appointed a Trump appointee to be an envoy for the region, and calls himself a Christian Zionist. This guy has funded media outlets and political projects across Lebanon that are aligned with that vision I just described towards normalization and against resistance, while really being celebrated in Washington as someone who represents the Lebanese people. Yet, your polls show this overwhelming hostility to Israel, again, across these different divides, and significant skepticism, as you described, towards the U.S. So I wanted to know, why do you think there's you kind of already explained it, the reason there's a disconnect between the views of Lebanon's elites and the views of ordinary Lebanese. But I wanted to ask you, what role has the media played in shaping opinions in Lebanon? Because opinions have changed slightly, and it is quite dangerous. But then again, it's still failing. And I guess maybe that's kind of self-evident, but why is it failing?
So let's actually highlight one very important finding, is that mainstream or traditional or legacy media has fallen for the first time so much behind, to the point that was another shocking finding. I've been doing opinion surveys and political attitude surveys and media uses surveys since 2013 in Lebanon. Every couple of years we do something like that. And every single time, television has topped the list of all the media. Somewhere between 85 and 90% of the public say television is their main source of information for news. This war is the first time in history that we saw that television dropped down to the mid 30%, while social media, especially WhatsApp groups. I know that's not very popular in the US today, but in Lebanon, that is the main source of news today for most Lebanese. It just drastically jumped up. So there's a lot of change in the media landscape. And I even sensed that today with some media owners and media producers contacting me and asking me about these polls. They were very worried. I don't know, maybe they're worried they're going to lose their funding from Sahnawi, or they're going to lose their jobs or businesses. So probably there's a lot of dispersion of information now. It's not concentrated in a few hands like it used to be before. And I also want to say that in the US, I mean, I'm very thankful for media outlets like you. I mean, we call your operation alternative media, but there's also a lot of others. I can think of The Intercept, Double Down, Mondevice. You have made the big difference in public opinion since October 7. And this was actually very clear even before we started doing the surveys. And one of the reasons why we did the surveys, I even wrote about these alternative media in my book that came out recently, but I wrote that 2 years ago, that the public consumption of media around the world has drastically changed, and people tend to go and flock to media that reflect their ideologies and their beliefs. So the influence of propaganda is very limited today, especially when you see that the battleground, the battles in the field are shifting the opinion more than what the news anchor is saying, more than what the politician is going up and saying. You know, one video with these FPV drones showing an Israeli tank being blown up or a bunch of Israelis running away, that is more powerful propaganda than a million newscasts, than all of these TV stations in Lebanon. That gives high morale to the fighters, to the supporters of the resistance, devastates the Israeli army and its supporters and its politicians. In fact, the Israeli generals and politicians are panicking from these FPV drones. The Americans, the Pentagon, just yesterday announced that they're looking for different companies to develop these what they call killer drones. So everybody is now seeking those. This is the real propaganda. This is what synchronizes the military and the media machine. The world has changed. Whatever Sahnawi is paying for all these millions of dollars, and by the way, I know that he specifically has paid for multiple radio stations in Lebanon. And if you look at the percentage of people who follow radio stations, it's dead. It's dead. Newspapers have died in Lebanon. Radio stations now are dead. That's like 1 to 3% of people still following radio for news. So he can go and spend all the money that he stole from our banks, from our savings, when the banks collapsed in Lebanon, and waste it on the propaganda that's going to be very useless.
Well, you know, interesting. We'll just use the moment to promote the exciting news today, which is that People's Dispatch and Breakthrough News are joining forces and, you know, being an even more formidable institution in this media battle that you're alluding to. But going back to your poll and some of the findings, you know, in this context, in this past couple of months, especially, we've seen this, that the U.S. government appears that it is attempting to try to recruit elements, or, you know, the Lebanese government and parts of the Lebanese state into its war on Hezbollah, sort of like a Palestinian Authority model where local institutions are pressured to police resistance or even declare war on them on behalf of Israel. Based on your research and what you know about Lebanese society, will this model actually work in Lebanon, or is this proposal and model going to run into resistance?
Well, it ran into resistance before in 1982 when the Israelis tried to impose a president on Lebanon and a government that will serve the Israeli interests. Look, this is a strategy that empire has always tried to use. You find a small elite in a country, usually a minority group that is sometimes hated by the public. You support it. That group sucks the money and the resources of the country and gives the empire the biggest chunk. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in Lebanon. We're not going to have house slaves. I think that's the the word that will serve the Israeli occupier or the empire of the world, the colonial empire of the world. It's not going to happen. I know the Lebanese, I know my people. We actually would rather keep fighting until the end, and we have been doing that, and we have been winning. I think the Israelis and the Americans need to learn from history. When the Israelis occupied Beirut and came in thinking that the Lebanese are going to welcome them in open arms, and they went into cafes and restaurants and started, I don't know, they thought they're on a tourist operation. And very quickly, just regular Lebanese citizens pulled out crude weapons and started shooting at them. And just a few weeks later, they were crying on these speakers, like, please don't shoot at us, we are leaving. So even with a worst case scenario that is even a fantasy of Netanyahu today, if the current resistance for some strange reason, I don't think that could even happen right now. They have been advancing with military operations, with everything. Even if they for some reason stop or give up, there's going to be another group that comes out. They did that first with the Palestinians. They claimed that the Palestinians are the reasons why we're occupying Lebanon and we're going to kick them out, blah, blah, blah. And then we saw what happened. And now they're doing the same thing. They're claiming, oh, it's Hezbollah, it's the resistance, it's the Shia community. They keep on coming up with different excuses. But look at the results. Really look at the results, and you'll find a big chunk of the public from all religions, from all classes, from all ages, from all communities support the armed resistance and believe that Israel is the enemy and want it out.
Well, Jad, I really, really, really appreciate your analysis. And this poll is so important. So really appreciate that you carried it out. It's much needed in this moment as we await to see what this next round of fake negotiations between the Lebanese government and the Israelis comes out with. We hope to have you back on again soon. Really appreciate you, and stay safe out there because you are talking to us from Lebanon.
Thanks, Rania. Thanks, Zoe.
Well, I would say that we had on some fantastic guests today, which you're not going to see them on CNN.
No. And honestly, that was, I also feel really inspired.
Yes.
And it's so easy to kind of just talk above what's really happening and not actually listen to the people on the ground. And so studies like that are actually so important, and I'm very glad that you brought it to us here, because this is what people need to be, hearing about, and hearing it from someone who actually. And
again, like Jad is a very smart professor at Lebanese American University.
Right.
CNN can totally call him up and have him on. I mean, he speaks. He's American actually as well. Speaks fluent English. He could speak in English on CNN, and he can tell you what a huge chunk of the Lebanese public thinks and wants. And obviously, it's not a monolithic community, but actually, what you only see almost exclusively at a place like CNN, or when you look at the New York Times or the Washington Post or any of these, definitely Bari Weiss's outlet, but anything Larry Ellison funds, is you're going to see that minority Lebanese opinion as though it represents everybody. I'm not going to name names today, but I will sometime. You know who you are if you're watching. But it's these people who want to normalize with the Israelis and want Lebanon to just be a part of the Zionism in the region.
Yeah.
And they want to they literally want to hand over a huge chunk of their own country. And the fact of the matter is that the majority of Lebanese people don't agree with that. So I'm really glad that we were able to do that segment. And I wanted to just say a couple things I forgot to mention in our earlier banter, because we were talking about the Israel parade in New York City. I really wanted to make sure I mentioned that while someone like Bezalel Smotrich, who is a genocidal maniac and war criminal who is wanted by the ICC, right?
I don't know if he has a warrant.
Well, he operates in a government whose leader is a fugitive, an ICC fugitive. There's a warrant out for Netanyahu's arrest. He is somebody who is welcomed with open arms in New York City, even by its Democratic politicians, except Zohran Mamdani. Meanwhile, we saw over the weekend that Hassan Piker, the Twitch streamer, and Cenk Uygur, his actually uncle, who works for, who runs the Young Turks, had their visas revoked by the UK because they had both had scheduled visits going to give speeches in the UK because of their criticism of Israel. So it's like just everything up is
Under
down. Up
a
is down.
Labour government, by
Yeah.
the way. We're
Yeah.
not talking about a Tory government nor Reform UK. We're talking about the Labour Party, which was founded by trade unions to be progressive and now has been completely co-opted by the right and the center. But I mean, it's
Up is down, genocide is self-defense, like imprisonment is freedom, and on and on and on. And it's just completely ridiculous. And I also wanted to mention, with regard to everything we've been talking about in this episode, there is an important war powers resolution that's up for a vote tomorrow in Congress that's being introduced by Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, to basically a war powers resolution on Lebanon. And the argument is that basically the Israelis have been coordinating with the Americans on Lebanon. And we've actually had them admit that, especially on strikes with regard to Beirut. So the idea is to remove the U.S. element from this Israeli war on Lebanon. And as we know, Israel would not be able to carry out its war on Lebanon without the military coordination and support of the U.S. government. So that's happening tomorrow. We're going to definitely keep an eye on that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention before we get to something you want to note is that my hair's straight today. And I just wanted to know if people like it better curly or straight.
I saw that in the notes.
I'm still just a girl at the end of the day.
I saw that in the notes, and I was like,
Is she serious?
I can't tell what's that's about besides.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, I miss my curls, but I do like it. Also looks nice like this. So yeah, I just poll.
Well,
Poll.
in the spirit of polling, let's do another poll. Well, one more news item, which I did want to kind of preview. This past Sunday, there was the first round of presidential elections in Colombia. This race, I think there were over 10 candidates. And the way elections work in Colombia is that there's a first round, and then the top two go to the next round, which will be held in some weeks. And this was a very intense race because, of course, Gustavo Petro, who has been the president of Colombia for the past 4 years, who's really the first progressive and left-wing president that Colombia has had in its recent history. There's a one-term limit in Colombia, so he cannot run again. And the big question was, like, is this progressive project going to survive and going to continue? His successor, in a way, the candidate for the historic PACT party, Gustavo Petro's party, Iván Cepeda, who's a fantastic human rights lawyer, founder of the movement for victims of state violence. He is the candidate for the historic PACT party, very left-wing, defender of the peace agreements. Of course, we know the right wing in Colombia is against peace. It does not agree. It does not believe in negotiations. If we're up to the Colombian right-wing politicians, there would be no ceasefire in Lebanon, Iran, or
God, what are we
Palestine.
going to do about these people?
So they
everywhere,
hate peace. I don't. It's like
the
come
Comprador
on.
class.
Yeah, the Comprador class. So big elections and big stakes because Colombia still does have an internal armed conflict. For those who are not hip to the politics, and this Sunday, again, there was the first round, and all the polls said that Iván Cepeda was going to come in first, but not win enough percentage points to win in the first round because you have to win like more than 50% or, there's all these calculations.
Yeah.
However, he did advance the second round, but in second place. And the person who came in first race, Abelardo de la Espriella, he is a far-right Milei, Trump, Bukele loving, like, fascist. There's a video going viral of him bragging.
Imagine being that guy. I just can't.
Well, get ready. There's a video that has gone viral of him bragging about exploding cats for fun and trying to make them fly. Yes, this
he's serious?
No, he's serious. He's like telling it and laughing in a interview.
That guy should be in jail. That sounds like a sociopath.
And so he and Iván Cepeda are advancing to the next round. There is controversy over the vote count and if in fact Abelardo gained the most votes. That's what the initial results say. Gustavo Petro has denounced the polling company or the rapid count company. So there's tension and news that will be coming out in the coming days around that. But the next round in Colombia's elections is going to be a crucial race. We will of course be covering that, and we will have people on to kind of break it down. And beyond Colombia, which is also, again, very important, it will have a huge impact on the region. Gustavo Petro, not only a defender of Palestine, but has been an important element in the progressive bloc in Latin America. Losing Colombia to the right wing again will have major impacts and on Trump's plans for Latin America. So previewing that, we will get to that, in the coming weeks and coming days. Of course, you can already read an article about it on the new breakthroughnews.org website.
Woo! Go visit there now. And for those who missed our beginning segment, go back and watch it. But just to reiterate, we have officially begun a 2 times a week live stream, noon Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays, hosted by me and Zoe Alexandra. It's called Breakthrough Live, BT Live, as you can see this beautiful logo behind us. Right now it's going to be available during the live stream, but very, very soon we're going to be putting that behind a paywall. Wait, bear with me for a second. For those who are paying members, and you can go to breakthroughnews.org and become a paying member for as little as $5 a month, or you can go to patreon.com/breakthroughnews. Same thing there, though we prefer if you do it through the website because then we don't have to give a cut to Patreon. But if you become a paying member, you will be able to access the live stream as it's happening and it in full, which will include a Q&A for members at the end. But we will, of course, be putting the segments with guests on various issues out for everybody to watch as their own segments on YouTube, as we always do with our live stream. So that will still be available to you. We just will have some perks behind the paywall for those who are basically helping fund Breakthrough News, our audience who helps us fund us. But again, I just want to reiterate, the important analysis and information by correspondents on the ground around the world, like you saw today, will still be available as segments on the Breakthrough News YouTube channel and on breakthroughnews.org to everybody. However, we do have an offer.
We do have an offer, and this will be launched in our Thursday live stream.
Oh.
But we want to preview it now.
Oh,
we want
okay.
to let people know.
I wasn't
now.
wrong.
But it's not an actionable item yet, but it will be actionable on Thursday, which is that we know we have a lot of dedicated supporters out there. You are on the live stream chat. You are commenting on the videos. You are saying, you're commenting. I'm not going to reiterate your comments. You know what they are. Sometimes they're funny. Sometimes I don't want to read them on air. And that's what I was going to do. But for all of you hardcore BT News fans, we have an exclusive, actually one-time deal offer, which is that this Thursday, during the live stream, we are going to send out a form in the live chat. And this form will allow you, hardcore BT News fan, to sign up for a 1-year membership.
For free.
For free.
Yeah.
And you will get access to the exclusive...
Everything!
All of the exclusive content. And you will get that for a year. We will be really happy. We want to support our OG crew as we grow in this moment. And that will be great. So look out for that form. It will be available in the live chat on Thursday. Keep your eyes out. We know there's a lot of you who are out here commenting, sending the love. So that is for you. And before we end this debut live stream, I do want to shout out our incredible teams. Obviously the People's Dispatch team is now becoming Breakthrough News team. Want to shout out them. Want to shout out our incredible production team on BT Live. Emily and John in the booth.
Yes. Shout out to Emily and John. We love you guys. You make the magic happen.
You make the magic happen. We had an incredible person, artist, designer help us out with these visuals because he wanted to contribute his own grain of salt, and I would argue it's more than a grain of salt that he contributed to this launch. As all of you will become members of Breakthrough News, he gave his contribution by making this incredible art, this incredible design and aesthetic for the new BT Live show. Vivek, wherever you are, we love you and thank you. And there's so many other people who help make this happen. And you can be one of those people who we love and appreciate too by becoming a member at breakthroughnews.org/subscribe. Become a member today. Invest in news that matters to you. Invest in news that cares about you and your understanding of the world, and help us grow.
Yes, please do. Help us grow. Help invest in the work me and Zoe do. If you like watching us, if you like our banter, I like our banter.
Of course.
If you like my
All
hair
about
straight
the
or curly, yeah, please consider becoming a member if you can, but also pay attention on Thursday if you want that, for those BT heads who will be paying attention on Thursday if you want that free 1-year membership. Breakthroughnews.org, guys. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you comment. Make sure you share. This was a fantastic premiere episode of BT Live. We'll see you again, same time this Thursday, noon Eastern.